for our edition of Mama I Made It. Today I'm joined in studio by Zakhe Khuzwayo of InnoVent. Now, InnoVent was started initially with a desk and just a phone in 2003 by two chartered accountants, Zakhe Khuzwayo and DJ Kumbula. And now the business has annual revenues upwards of 150 million rand, and they've steadily seen a 25% annual growth over the last 5 years or so. Now, their formula has allowed them to expand to the United Kingdom, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Tanzania. And the co-founder and the COO, Zakhe Khuzwayo, joins me now in studio to tell us about that journey and, more importantly, some of the things that they've learned that they can share with us. Nguni, kunjani baba?
Right, kunjani.
Ngikhona. I always, when we have these kind of conversations, maybe want to start from the early days. Two CAs, you could have gone out and worked for the Big Four. You could have decided to stay in that space and undertake all manner of audits and do advisory work. But you decided to go out on your own. Let's talk about the early days, some of the difficulties that you've had. A lot has been said about, you guys initially starting out with just a phone and a desk and bootstrapping the business. What were those early days like?
Yeah, so I mean, myself and my business partner, DJ Kumbula, had always the idea that we wanted to be entrepreneurs. So even though we trained as accountants, we just knew at the back of our minds, even at varsity and at school, we were always doing business and selling things and that type of thing. So we always knew we were going to run our own businesses at some point. When we then met at a company that we worked for in 2002, we then decided to go on our own. Okay. Fortunately, we were lucky that Sasfin Bank decided to back us, and they gave us the initial funding to start the business.
How much was that?
They gave us about 7 million.
Okay, then, yeah.
Back then, yeah, in 2003, which was a sizable check for a 25-year-old. Give them 7 million and say start this business. But they backed us, and it's turned out very well for them.
Yeah. How long did it take you to pay that off?
About 5 years. We paid off that loan, and we've been debt free ever since.
Sure. So you guys work in the space of sort of leasing and rental of IT assets.
Yeah.
For lay people who might not be familiar with what that looks like in a commercial environment, what is that?
Yeah, so the simplest way I explain this is that we're the Avis of IT equipment.
Okay.
So if you need a laptop, a tablet, for 1 day, for a month, for 3 years, you come to us and you tell us, this is what I need and this is what I want to do with it. And instead of you going out to buy that equipment, we simply rent it to you. And the cost of renting that device is actually cheaper than actually buying it outright, because what we've done is we've created a secondary market for used equipment. We're able to refurbish the equipment that comes back to us and then put it back in the market. And that way we're able to subsidize the cost for our clients, and the product just sells itself.
Is that for both hardware and software?
Well, it's mostly for hardware.
Okay.
The software is really the operating system that comes. If it's Apple, it comes with iOS, or Microsoft, it'll be Windows, but not the application software that we don't finance, but we finance the hardware.
Okay. And I mean, initially, when you guys were starting, I'd be interested in how your customer acquisition strategy took shape. 25-year-olds, relatively cash flush, with 7 million to start up. What were your first set of clients like, and how did you acquire those clients?
So it was cold calling. Picking up the phone, phoning FDs, phoning CIOs, IT managers, and presenting our story. So it was difficult in the beginning. For the first, I'd say, 9 months, we didn't have a single client. Oof. So it helped to have the 7 million to keep us going. Sure. Until we actually acquired our first couple of clients. So it was tough, but once that started gaining momentum, it kind of snowballed, and we got referrals, and people started taking us seriously. Yeah.
And when you look at, I mean, a lot has changed in the ICT space from 2003. I mean, 2003 was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot has happened.
Yeah.
I don't think 16 years ago you had tablets.
Yeah.
So what kind of equipment were you leasing out then, or renting out then, and how has that differed to what you're leasing out now? What impact has that had on your margins?
So when we started out, we were always leasing out desktops and laptops, which is your computer and your laptop, normal laptop that you walk around with, and then server infrastructure, servers, routers, storage, where all your information sits. And then as time went by, we found that we were getting a lot more mobile devices coming on board. So people switched from actually having a desktop to actually having a laptop or a tablet, and then the phones, of course, where now your smartphone, you really get your email, you get everything on there. You really use a desktop, you're either on your mobile or on your tablet. And that has shifted definitely towards the mobile space. In terms of margins, I think our margins have stayed pretty much the same, because as the devices get more mobile, they get more wear and tear, so you get to spend a bit more on refurbishing, etc. But the demand is also higher. So, you know, people like the cool stuff, you know, the Apple stuff, etc. So you can price it up.
Refurbishing, did you contract that, or was that something that intentionally from the start you decided to insource?
No, we decided to control that internally.
Okay.
So we built our own refurbishment center, where the devices come in and our own technicians actually open the device up, take out all the old components and then put in new components. And it's as good as new when they're done with it.
Some of our viewers might not be familiar, I guess, as to what the advantage or the benefit might be for a corporation to rather lease or to lease rather than own some of their IT infrastructure, and maybe just explain that to us.
Okay, so at a basic level, it's a cash flow advantage. Okay. Obviously, you're not paying out 10,000 to buy a device. You're spreading it over a certain period of time. So that cash flow advantage is obviously an advantage. And then in terms of just present value cost of that cash flow, if you look at the opportunity cost of that money, because you could take that money, put it in your business, put it into stock, turn it 3, 4, 5 times, and make a return of 25% instead of it being stuck in a device that's sitting on your desk. So if you factor in all of those things, plus the tax advantages of being able to write off that lease payment against your taxable income, makes it quite much cheaper to lease. Furthermore, which would be quite interesting for your viewers, is that if you actually lease a refurbished device, it's like, a simple example, if you buy a new BMW versus a used BMW, you're going to save quite a lot of money. So it's the same thing. You're buying a refurbished device, you're getting the warranty, you're getting the service plan, you're getting all the bells and whistles that come with a new device, but it's a much more cost-effective device because it's at 50% of the cost of a new one. But you're still getting all the performance and all the support that you get on a new device. Why would you do it?
So and you know, just as you're speaking, I mean, I'm thinking about many of the small businesses that we often talk to, who are our viewers, and many of whom come as our guests, and a big issue for them is cash flow. Do you find that increasingly a lot more of the smaller guys are coming to you and saying, hey, I'd rather lease out the laptops that many of my people sort of use, rather than be stuck with having to pay large amounts of money for, in essence, something that you really can't, I guess, use as working capital per se? True.
So what's happening is that the smaller businesses definitely use the services, especially on the refurb side, because they're saving on the cost of the device, and then you're spreading out the cost over 3 years. So they literally are paying 300 Rand a month for a computer, which any business can really afford if it's a proper business. But what we're finding is that even the larger corporates now are saying, listen, the economic times are tough. We need to save costs. Where can you cut costs without compromising on quality? And this is the first place. IT is probably the biggest spend of the people in most businesses. So if you could cut your IT hardware costs by, say, 50%, you're slashing quite a huge chunk of your costs by renting refurbished devices.
Yeah. Let's talk about your expansion. I mean, you guys are in the UK, you're in Zambia, you're in Zimbabwe. When did that happen? What did you guys need to do to ensure that that expansion was successful? And if you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
So that started in about 2012. Yeah, so what happened was that in 2010, we joined an organization called Endeavor.
Okay.
Endeavor's a group of international entrepreneurs that got together and said, how do we support businesses to scale up from a small business into a large global company? So they helped us to kind of think bigger, think scale, think global in terms of our business and not just South Africa. And once we'd gone through that program, we then decided, listen, we needed to go to a country where, you know, there's a big GDP, you know, like the UK. You get large users of IT equipment, and you can scale your business much easier. So then we use them to, for consultants, getting us the business licenses and all the groundwork to be able to set up in these countries and actually recruit people as well.
Okay.
Because then we're able to recruit people to work in these businesses in these other countries.
I mean, one would think that contracting is a big part of your work. How has that morphed over time? The sort of contracts that you go into with some of the partners that you have, how has that morphed from when you started in 2003 to now, how you do it? Do you have a massive legal department that sort of looks at some of these things, or is this something that I guess you ask your preferred service provider to do?
Yeah, so contracting, we do it internally, but what we found is that over time, obviously things have become more digital. So now you've got e-signatures, you've got e-contracts, so you don't have a mountain of paperwork. So it's actually become simpler, although you find that there's more clauses in the contracts now because you've got to be more environmentally aware.
Yes.
You've got POPI, which is your Privacy Act and all of those things. So yes, more clauses have come in, but the contracting process has actually become much more simpler.
Okay. And you say you take a life stage approach when it comes to some of the infrastructure or assets that you lease out or rent out to some of your clients. Yeah. How do you dispose of it? What does that process look like?
So before it gets to disposal, that asset will probably go through 2 or 3 life cycles.
Because you refurbish it, right?
Because I'm refurbishing it, you see. So I'm stretching out its lifespan from normally a 3-year asset into a 9-year asset. And by the time I'm done after 9 years, then it's really time to kind of strip it down to its components and then, use e-waste providers to be able to then dispose of the different components in an environmentally friendly manner.
Okay, all right. And I want us to pause there for a second, because when we come back, I want us to take a look at, even from a capital structure perspective, I mean, you've touched, I guess, on the cash flow benefits of taking your approach, but one would also think there's a benefit of not having some of these assets on my balance sheet. And we'll touch on that when we come back.
Sure.
I'm in conversation with Zakhe Khuzwayo. He's the co-founder and the Chief Operating Officer at InnoVent. And let's take a quick break now. But remember, you can engage with us on social media. Ask us your questions and tell us what you think on the socials. You can use our hashtag #BusinessUnusual, #Newsroom405, and you can also tag me. My handle is @AYTawe, on Twitter, and our official handle is @405business_. Stay tuned.